Neji versus Gaara. Now, admittedly, just right off the bat, there is absolutely no narrative significance to this fight. There's nothing to imply that this would have been like the greatest fight in the tuning exams. Neji and Gaara, as far as I'm aware, they don't even look at each other throughout the entire time that they're both on page, on screen at all. So the only reason that we're choosing to do this video is because the fight is a bit more interesting than, I think anyway, what Neji versus Lee versus Gaara was and what Sasuke versus Gaara was, because of how Neji interacts with Gaara and his specific defenses. Now, there is a little bit of a competition between Neji and Gaara when it comes to how good their defenses are, because at least Tintin thinks that Neji's rotation is superior to Gaara's sand defense outside of the sand dome, because she had never seen that before. But yeah, so there's a little bit of competition there, but the overall fight as well is still just more interesting. I do have another one of my sun seeds and spawns, the Chromebook user himself, sadly, Truth here. Hello, Truth.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Truth has a YouTube channel. It's not that great. I wouldn't subscribe to it, but if you want to, for whatever reason, it is down there and you can go click on it and watch his videos and whatnot. What video you have coming out next?
I have a Sonata video coming out soon.
Yeah, so if you like Sonata there, you can go check out Truth's video. But you want to get started? Neji versus Gaara, buddy?
Yeah, I'll start with Gaara. Basically, his whole narrative, things in the story. Basically, Gaara as a character is supposed to be someone that's above the level of Genin. He's not supposed to be a normal person like everyone. Well, I won't say everyone, but most people in the tuning exams, right? They're supposed to be normal Genin, trying to get to the level of tuning. People like Gaara have come out of B rank missions unscathed, no damage at all. He also has things like his sand, like basically does everything for him and doesn't need to do anything at all. So the way his sand barrier works is that he just sits there and he pours chakra into it and it automatically defends him, and he doesn't have to do anything outside of that, as long as nothing's fast to him. You see later when things are fast to him, clearly completely blitzes sand.
Yeah, like Lee, Sasuke, whatever. Gaara also, he completed the tuning exams in the fastest time ever. Now, it is worth noting, at least in the Itachi novel anyway, that Itachi did his tuning exam solo, so he had no help. But while Gaara did have a team, like he had Tamari and Kankuro with him, they're so much inferior to him that it didn't really matter. Like you could also say Gaara did the same thing. Like he just cleared the tuning exam solo. Tamari and Kankuro get absolutely nothing for that. The only reason that they even probably got to the end, well, maybe not Tamari, but the only reason Kankuro got to the end is because Gaara was there. Kankuro sucks. Like I'm not giving anything to Kankuro. But you can continue. I just had to mention that. I had to.
Yeah, that's fine. Basically, when we go on to more of Gaara's scaling, it gets kind of hard, at least for base Gaara. He doesn't really do anything outside of defending against a weighted Lee, and some of weightless Lee. Whenever he's defending against weightless Lee, it's before Lee goes all out. We get the whole thing where Guy says Lee explode, and then he gets completely outmatched. Like he gets outmatched and he gets his first wound ever in battle. And then we're shown his second ultimate defense, which is considered his true ultimate defense, his sand armor, which is basically a worse version of the sand shield, kind of what I would consider a worse version, because not only does it take more chakra, it says it's riddled with weak points, so it's easier to break, like bust down, basically.
We don't ever get like any explanation on what Kankuro meant by weak points, do we? Like at all?
Nah, not really.
Yeah, I don't think we do. You could kind of speculate on what the weak points might be just because of how Lee interacts with the sand. So Lee does kick the sand when he's in the fourth gate. He kicks the sand one time, like under Gaara's chin, and seemingly from that one kick, all the sand armor cracked. But then when Lee did his gigantic barrage assault, only pieces of the armor started breaking off and it didn't crack anymore. So maybe you could say like, oh, the under the chin part is a piece of Gaara's sand armor that's weak. While this is only tuning exams in the beginning, we will go over later forms of them after this, like Gaara versus Kimimaru and Neji versus Kidomaru, those specific versions of the characters. But yeah, at least while they're in the tuning exams, base Gaara's pretty much not doing anything to Neji. It's worth noting that Lee, even before 5th gate, before any of that, he still considers Neji to have the strongest taijutsu. He thinks the Hyuga in general just are the strongest school of taijutsu in Konoha. He mentioned this earlier whenever he was fighting with Naruto and Sasuke just before the preliminaries. He said he didn't think he was the strongest junior ninja, but that title belonged to somebody else on his team. Obviously, that person he was referring to was Neji. And then we get a little bit of a breakdown from Guy, Kakashi, and Lee on how the gentle fist differs from the hard fist style, where the hard fist style more focuses on bruises, breaking bones, and making your opponent bleed. But the gentle fist, all you really need is a scratch. Like, you just need to hit your opponent a little bit and it sends chakra through their chakra network and attacks your organs. And then Kakashi says this is particularly strong because, at least in Naruto, there's absolutely no way for you to strengthen your organs and train them against some sort of an attack like this. So Neji already has a form of durability negation with that. At least against everyone in the Naruto verse, don't take it to like, crossverse and whatnot, where some people actually can strengthen their insides. But at least within Naruto, Neji actually does have some sort of durability negation. So to quickly talk about Hinata versus Neji, because there's a fair amount of Neji downplay with this fight, and I don't think it's fair at all. The statement comes from the data book, and you can talk about the data book scan if you want to.
Sure. The data book says talks about this one portion of their fight where they're doing the whole gentle fist clash and whatnot. And they say they're fighting on par with each other, or specifically that Hinata's fighting on par with Neji. It would be a huge feat for Hinata. There's a few problems with this. I'll just bring up one right here real quick. See that in this whole clash, Hinata's not getting anything done. I think she gets like maybe one scratch off that doesn't do anything. But later on, when we see the effects that Neji did, he completely destroyed her chakra network. Like, she was riddled with hits and like points. And then when Neji felt like ending it, he just stopped her, and then he showed her all of her of her bruises that he gave her. So it wasn't really a contest to begin with. Neji was kind of toying with her. It never implied he was going all out.
Yeah. And then too, if you look further in the data book, or at least read the context of this, all it's saying is that in this particular scene, they were on par. So not only, like Truth said, Neji's not going all out in this particular scene. This is before he started using his Tenketsu pressing points or whatever, something like that. The passage above in the data book says that Hinata disliked conflict, despite which she fought desperately in order to change herself, but as expected, she was no match for Neji. So the data book literally just a little bit before this confirmed that Hinata was no match for Neji. And then you have other things in the manga too that just imply this. Guy says that Neji's master strike is whenever he hits the heart, which he wasn't using for the entire fight. Neji says that her attacks had been ineffective since the beginning. Sakura says that because of Neji's strength, this just isn't a fair fight. Like we said earlier, he was basically blitzing her the whole time by hitting her Tenketsu points and she didn't notice. Just Neji's not equal to Hinata. It's complete downplay. It's complete slander. It doesn't make sense, and I think most people would get that, but it's still, even still, there is the arguments that he is, and we just have to address it. Just for whoever in the comments. Now, there's obviously going to be comparisons to Lee in this video because both of them fought Lee and both of them have statements against Lee. So naturally, that's just like the best way to compare both of them to each other, at least in terms of scaling. It is worth noting that after both of their fights with Lee and after both of the comparisons, they both trained for a month to get stronger. And Gaara in particular, he kills people to get stronger. Yeah. Under the sand waterfall funeral. Now this is extremely edgy. I'm gonna read it word for word, right? But it's extremely edgy. It just sounds edgy. There's no way for me to reword this where it doesn't sound edgy. But it'll be on screen. You can read it yourself. Let's see. The bloody tears of the dead blend with the massive sand, even greater power called upon to provide carnage. A terrifying jutsu to end someone's life, squashing them after they are captured with the sand binding coffin. The sand closes in from every direction, its pressure numbering in tons, and before long, the opponent experiences death. Their blood instantly scattered from the sand in the openings in it. Despite this cruelty, it's as if some splendid fireworks had just been shot up. A chunk of red meat returns to the ground, its crimson red blood absorbed by the sand, its strength becoming Gaara's. So it just says a few times in there that Gaara basically gets stronger from killing people. And we know between his fight with Lee and Sasuke at least, he killed 2 Jonin in the hallway in front of Shikamaru and Naruto. And he killed Dosu when Dosu tried to confront him because Gaara doesn't sleep. So Gaara got stronger, and then we see Neji training his rotations with Tenten in the forest in between those 2 fights. So they both get stronger from there. So that is a fair point. But there's still some comparisons you can make that just make it make sense, right? So Sasuke is directly compared to Weightless Lee, and you would get the implication from some people. They would tell you that this guy's statement where he says that in terms of speed Lee can't be surpassed is referring only to Weightless Lee, when the context doesn't really support that, because we have Sasuke rivaling Weightless Lee, and then we have later Guy says that Lee would need the 3rd gate to beat Neji. So he's clearly not talking about Weightless Lee being unrivaled in speed, just Lee in general. And 5th gate Lee being unrivaled in speed is nothing to like scoff at. Lee's really fast. He's obviously faster than Gaara, Sasuke, and Neji. So it's not like that's an anti-feat for Gaara or an anti-statement for Neji. But anyway, Sasuke keeps up with Gaara, or he's faster than Gaara, and he's just as fast as Weightless Lee. But then Neji, if you want to talk about this truth, you can. But Neji, you can compare him more to gated Lee, like 3rd gate, maybe even further. But you can go.
Yeah, so this isn't as blatant in the Viz translations, but what the raw kanji of the actual manga actually say, whenever a guy makes a statement about get Lotus and whatnot, he explains that the high speed combo is what's needed to beat Neji. The Viz translation completely takes this out. It just says this is what's needed to beat Gaara and like win the match. But the raws say that it's what's needed to beat Neji. That would mean that, obviously Neji should be faster than anything below the 3rd gate, I would say, since the 3rd gate is what's needed to actually use the reverse Lotus. And you can make arguments for it actually being the 4th gate, because the Lee he's commenting on is 4th gate Lee. So, there's obviously those arguments. So anything below those speeds, Neji should just be above a good margin.
Yeah, so Neji, basically the implication from this is Neji's faster than Gaara. He should be able to do similar things to him that Sasuke and Lee both did, if not to a greater extent because of the gentle fist. And then now we're going to talk about how Neji's gentle fist would interact with Gaara's sand armor, and for the most part Neji's just negging the sand armor. Like I don't even think there's anything Gaara can do. So yeah. Neji tells us that chakra built substances just stand no chance against the gentle fist. He demonstrates this with Kidomaru, and Gaara's whole sand thing is just chakra built substances. So Neji, in theory anyway, should be able to just break down the sand armor, hit Gaara's Tenketsu points, and put him down, at least in base. Now, a common refutation to this would be the fact that Kidomaru's gold skin prevents him from getting hit by the gentle fist. People are like, oh, that's a chakra built substance. It's not. It's just like something Kidomaru can do. It's not necessarily chakra based. It's like anatomy based on him. Sort of like a Kekkei Genkai, but I don't think it's a ninjutsu, so I wouldn't call it that. It's just something that whatever clan he's from, the 6-armed clan, I don't know, spider clan, they could do that. So that's not really a refutation. So Neji should be able to just completely break down the sand armor and bypass it, put Gaara down. But Gaara has, just like Naruto, a way to get around that with Shikaku. And Shukaku is way more willing to lend Gaara power than Kurama is to lend Naruto power. So if anything, Gaara would be out way less time than Naruto originally was. And then we know that Gaara can also access more Shukaku power than Naruto can access Kurama power. So when Gaara gets back up, him and Neji aren't going to be relative. He's going to be speed blitzing him basically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at that point, Gaara can just take it even further. He can get a one tail. He can go like half transformation suit. He can go full Biju mode and shoot air blast at Neji. But whenever Shukaku comes out, Neji just stands no chance. And then if you want, you can quickly wrap it up by talking about, you know, end of series, both of them. But I mean, I don't think it changes much.
Yeah, it doesn't really change much. It's kind of hard to compare. It's pretty easy actually. I don't know why I said that, but basically just that it's basically that Kidomaru just on a completely lower level than Kimimaru, which, you know, obviously Gaara was defending against, and he actually blocked his strongest attack, his strongest defense. So if Gaara wanted to use his strongest defense against end of series Neji is not getting past it. I'm sorry, Neji just isn't getting past it. For speed, it's also kind of easy. You know, the Sand got massively stronger. Gaara also, like, obviously got massively stronger from you know, the end of series from tuning exams. Even Lee says this, and we see him combat stronger opponents. Obviously, you have end of series Neji, who's having problems against people like Kidomaru. Even their combat styles kind of contradict, and obviously Kidomaru has an advantage due to his like ability to get farther away, and Neji needs to be close to win. It's still something to note and something to show the comparisons and power of him.
Kidomaru also directly compares Neji to Kimimaru. Not saying that they're as strong as one another, because it's implied Kimimaru is stronger than the whole Sound 4 and just base, right? Like Kimimaru should be at least Jonin level in base, and the Sound 4 all lost to two out of chakra Jonin while they were in Curse Mark 2. So he should be way stronger than them in base, even when they're in Curse Mark 2. And he says that Neji pushed him as far as Kimimaru did before. So Kimimaru in base can do what Neji did kind of just casually, right? And then Gaara obviously forced Kimimaru to go Curse Mark 2 whenever they were fighting. So just another like thing on top. Gaara is stronger than Neji at that point. So quickly wrap everything up so everyone understands. In the tuning exams, Neji would probably beat base Gaara, but then when Gaara pulls out any Shukaku power, Neji's done for. And then at the end of the series, at the end of part 1 anyway, Neji just cannot win. Gaara is just simply superior. Subscribe to the truth or don't care. And after that, you know, subscribe to me too. Have a nice day.